Thank you. In 1987, Tina Lord found herself in quite the pickle. See, this gold digger made sure she married sweet Cord Roberts just before he inherited millions. But when Cord vowed out Tina loved his money as much as she loved him, he dumped her. Cord's mother, Maria, had Max holding to romance Tina, and Tina, thinking Cord didn't love her, flew to Argentina with Max. Cord had finally figured out what was going on and had rushed after them, but he was too late. Tina had already been kidnapped, strapped to a raft, and sent over a waterfall. Cord was sad for a bit, but then he bounced back with a super smart archaeologist named Kate, and they had a gorgeous wedding until Tina, seemingly back from the dead, ran into the church holding a baby. Stop, she screamed. Am I too late? Cord, this is your son. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the soap opera One Life to Live introduced a love story that lasted 25 years. Soap operas may be just a tad over dramatic, but their exaggerated stories often cast light on the problems of real life. In this talk, entitled 4 Larger-Than-Life Lessons from Soap Operas, Kay Adams, a former casting director for a famous soap opera, shares 4 important lessons that we can learn in order to live a successful life. Now, if you've ever seen a soap opera, you know the stories and characters can be larger than life. And if you're a fan, you find that exaggeration fun. And if you're not, maybe you find them unsophisticated, a waste of time, or that their bigness means their lessons are small. But I believe the opposite to be true. There are real-life lessons that we can learn from soap operas, and they're as big and adventurous as any soap opera storyline. So with that, let's start with soap opera lesson 1. Surrender is not an option. All My Children's Erica Kane was a self-important princess who deep down was scrappy and daring. Perhaps her most famous scene is her alone in the woods, suddenly face to face with a grizzly bear. She screamed at the bear, "You may not do this! Do you understand me? You may not come near me! I'm Erica Kane and you're a filthy beast!" And of course the bear laughed. So with that teaches us as obstacles are to be expected. And we can choose to surrender, or we can stand and fight. Pandora's Tim Westergren knows this better than most. Tim launched a company with $2 million in funding, but was out of cash the next year. Tim chose to fight. So every 2 weeks for 2 years on payday, he stood in front of his employees and he asked them to sacrifice their salaries. And it worked. More than 50 people deferred $2 million, and now, more than a decade later, Pandora is worth billions. When you tell yourself surrender is not an option, you can overcome enormous obstacles. So with that, let's go to soap opera lesson 2. Sacrifice your ego and drop the superiority complex. Now, this is scary. It's an admission that we're not as special as we might like to think. Stephanie Forrester of The Bold and the Beautiful thought she was pretty darn special, and she made Valley Girl Brooke know it. But after 25 years of epic fighting, Stephanie got sick and let Brooke in. They made amends, Stephanie died in Brooke's arms, and here is our takeaway. Drop your ego. Our ability to improve our reality comes only when we make ourselves vulnerable. Kind of like Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks. After a great run as CEO, Howard stepped down in 2000, and stock prices fell. Howard rejoined the team in 2008, and one of the first things he did was apologize to all 180,000 employees. He apologized. And now, more than a decade later, Starbucks has more than doubled its net revenue since Howard came back. So, sacrifice your desire to be right all the time. Soap opera lesson number 3. Evolution is real. You're supposed to grow and change. Recasting happens all the time on soaps. Over the last 20 years, 4 different actors have played the same key role of Carly Benson on General Hospital. And here's what that means for us. Well, we may not swap faces in our own lives. We can evolve too. We can open ourselves to new opportunities like Julia Child. Julia was a World War II spy, and when the war ended, she got married, moved to France, and decided to give culinary school a shot. Julia, her books, and her TV shows revolutionized the way America cooks. We all have the power to initiate change in our lives, but sometimes life chooses for us, and we don't get a heads up. So thank goodness for soap opera lesson 4. Resurrection is possible. In 1983, Days of Our Lives Stefano DiMera died of a stroke. But not really, because he died in 1984 when his car plunged into the harbor. And yet, he was back. in 1985 with a brain tumor. And here's what that means for us. As long as the show is still in air or you're still breathing, nothing is permanent. Resurrection is possible. Now, of course, just like life, soaps ultimately do meet the big finale. CBS canceled my show as the world turns, but I knew my story wasn't over. I just had to tap into everything I'd ever learned about soap operas. I had to be brave like Erica and refuse to surrender. I had to be vulnerable like Stephanie and ask for help. And I had to be adaptable like Carly and evolve my skills, and I had to be resilient like Stefano and resurrect my career. We will all experience what looks like an ending in our lives, and we can choose to make it a beginning. Kind of like Tina, who survived that waterfall. And because I'd hate to leave a cliffhanger hanging, Tina and Cord did get divorced. But then they got remarried 3 times before the show went off air. So remember, as long as there's a breath in your body, it is never too late to change your story. Thank you.